Welcome all. I am Mikkel Christoffersen. I'm the Deputy Director of the Danish Library Association, and this is webinar 1 out of 3 on the digital transformation in libraries called Audience Development Using Digital Tools. Good. So agenda for today is that this webinar series is part of the ELAN project that EBLIDA is running with the European Union. And the project manager, Ines Ferreira, will tell you very briefly what the ELAN program is. I'll then give you an introduction to the topic for today, and then I'll yield the floor to my colleague here in Denmark, Anne Vendelbo Helmi, who's the project owner of the Danish e-lending service for children, which is wildly successful, and she will tell you all about how they did it. Then we will pivot a little bit to e-lending, because the point of today is to talk about how e-lending allows us to develop audiences. And we have 3 brilliant speakers who will give you a brief overview of where they are in their journey, which is Slovenia by Aleš Klemen, who is the Deputy Director of Ljubljana City Library in Slovenia, Stuart Hamilton, who's the Head of Libraries Development in LGMA Ireland, and Anna Tuomikoski, who's the Information Specialist at National Library of Finland. And then we'll have a Q&A session. However, we tend to have so much to say and too little time, so we maybe have to rush it a little bit. That would be all my fault. And so the slides should be available afterwards, and this recording should also be available afterwards. And without wasting any more time, I give the floor to you, Ines.
Just for those of you who might not know EBLIDA, so EBLIDA is an association of library associations in Europe. We are an umbrella association, an NGO, and we are based in The Hague. We work at the European level. We have 122 members from over 30 countries, and this means that we represent close to 70,000 libraries and 100 million library users. And broadly speaking, our vision is to work towards a democratic, equitable, and sustainable society in Europe, and to harness the power of libraries to ensure free access to information, knowledge, and culture. Our mission at its core is tied to advocacy. So we represent libraries at the European level, and especially with European authorities. And we, of course, also aim to assist libraries in this transition that, of course, you all know from just books to addressing other more broader societal needs and challenges. And so how do we do this? We have primarily 4 pillars. So like I mentioned before, we have advocacy and lobbying, especially with the EU. We work on sustainable development and digital transformation. We want to, of course, increase the capacities of our members and library associations throughout Europe. We work on literacy promotion and all kinds of formats. And we engage at the European and international level, primarily through EU-funded projects. And this is the case of ELAN. And ELAN is, like Mikkel said, a project that EBLIDA is engaged with. We're the only beneficiaries. And it means European Library Associations Network. It's quite straightforward. It started in 2025. It ends in 2028. And the goal is very much aligned with the EBLIDA mission that I've mentioned before. So we want to build the capacities of library associations. And in turn, as you'll see on the right side of the screen, the library associations can impart this new knowledge and these experiences with the libraries in their networks. And then the libraries themselves will be more empowered to serve their citizens. Of course, a key part of ELAN is a collaboration. And so one of our goals is to make sure that library associations not only engage with EBLIDA, but that also engage with each other and learn from each other to sort of level the situation across Europe. And so because we can't work on everything and all topics all at once, the ELAN project is aligned with the EU priorities, and you can see them listed on the screen now. So these represent more or less the work packages, if you're familiar with the EU speak, or focus areas, and they are capacity building. And in this, we did, for instance, a survey to know where library associations across Europe are more or less confident, to inform other activities. Then we have democracy and citizen engagement, disinformation, media literacy, and audience development. We have, of course, sustainability and climate goals. We have digital transformation, which, of course, this webinar is part of. And we have what we call cultural diplomacy, which is a specific aim of collaborating and networking with library associations which are in Europe, but outside of the EU, such as Moldova, Serbia, Turkey, and Ukraine. So how do we do this in very practical terms? So of course you're here with us on this webinar, and this is one of the examples, but we also have in-person events. So for instance, we have two peer learning circles. We had one last year, we'll have another one this year. We have yearly advocacy events in Brussels alongside EU representatives so that we can showcase them what we do and how we can help each other. We have exchange visits where people go to a specific library to learn more about a specific topic. For instance, last year we went to Italy to learn about sustainability. And we have, for instance, online collaboration sessions every 6 months. We'll have one next month. And we have many others. You'll have this webinar on digital transformation. There's the webinar on sustainability, which has just been announced. And so we encourage you to take a look at our webpage and, of course, to join our LinkedIn group if you can, to keep up to date with our events, to register. Of course, participation is always free. And to share, of course, also your own experiences and collaborate and connect with other library representatives and library associations across Europe. And this is it for me. Thank you very much for listening.
I get to do a little bit of introduction to the topic of audience development using digital tools. So it should be, at this day and age, this is after all not the bad old days of library service. We should be at a point where we are not doing things without asking ourselves what kind of audience and what kind of development and how we want to go about things, i.e., what are we actually trying to achieve here? But we had in Copenhagen Libraries a couple of years ago, had a large competency development program on marketing and market-oriented thinking using these wonderful books on the side. Things are a little bit more complicated than that, because we used to sort of think, okay, who are we trying to reach here? Particular age groups, genders, any socioeconomic group like resource-deprived families. What are we trying to get them to do? Are we trying to get them to read? Or because then the library doesn't actually have to provide the books, or we're getting them to use the library, in which case they don't have to check out books, but maybe just for events. Maybe we just want to teach them about something like disinformation or artificial intelligence. And how are we going about it? Well, are we using digital tools for just digital engagement, or are we using digital tools for physical engagement, or are we trying to make them do a completely third thing? These are all the basic questions, and we all know how to ask ourselves that. However, I don't think that we should any longer be thinking about just these discrete events, so that we make events or we make a project and the whole point is somebody's coming in to check out a book or watching something and then they go home again and everything's fine. I think we are at the point now where we have to think about much deeper about our customers and their customer journeys. And in a customer journey, what you want to do is it's always divided into phases. I completely stole this from canva.com. This is for a business, it's not for a library, but the point is the same. There are always these 5 stages, making people aware of you, making yourself a serious consideration in what it is that they're trying to do. Then you want them to decide on you. And once you do that, then you want to retain them. So the retention, we haven't talked a lot about this in the sector. How do we go from one sort of touch point to retaining our customers and then making them into loyal customers? And for every aspect of this, or every stage in this journey, this is one way of doing it, putting down the customer actions and the touch points and the goals and the key performance indicator for each step. Another way of looking at it is this infinity loop, it's the same stages. This I stole from something called superoffice.com, where on the left hand of the circle, people are out of market, so they're not thinking about you. But then something triggers them, and you could be an alternative for them. So you start thinking about how can we get in touch with people so much that they actually consider you. And then we don't typically sell things, so a purchase decision would be an engagement decision on part of our users. Now, if we don't get them to engage, you can see the little off ramp here. Then they go out of market again, back to square one. We lost this time. However, if we do get them to use us and engage with us, then we have to make sure on the right hand side that they have a brilliant experience, because we need to retain them, and we would ideally turn them into loyal customers, because then what happens on the right side is that they stay in the circle with the little green off ramp. If we don't make sure that they have a good experience and we are relevant for them, then they just continue to be out of market. They checked out a book and now they are out of market again. Another problem with this is that a lot of what we do tend not to be the result of really deep strategic thinking. So this is from an article called Rethinking Libraries in the Book Business by two of my former colleagues at Copenhagen Libraries. If you can't get a hold of this, please write to me. I'll get you a bootleg copy. But the point of this is that the whole thing is a multi-year loop where you start by generating market intelligence, you knowledge share through the organization, get everybody on board with their ideas and their knowledge of the users. You then select what kind of target groups and initiatives you want. You execute them, you evaluate them, and that becomes the input to the next circle. However, the problem with digital is often that, as I point out here on the right, that the focus on target groups is so important for libraries, because many users have high expectations of library services. So this is sort of a luxury digital problem that a lot of people are digital super users. And so once you become digital, everything you do is comparable to everything else. If a physical, excuse my language, but a physical user comes into the physical library and that person has a very, very bad experience with the local librarian, then that interaction will stay between them. However, if you do something horrible in online, and it's immediately comparable to everything that everybody else does, and there are some excellent digital services out there. Another problem is the physical and the digital users are not necessarily the same. So, like I said, do you want to do digital engagement to make physical users out of people, or are you doing digital engagement to just make people digital users? Those are quite different things, and they don't intermix necessarily. This is from 22. This is Danish data. As you can see, 44% of our users in Denmark only uses the physical library. 34% only uses the digital library. So we're left with 22%, a little more than a fifth of our users are actually both using the physical and the digital part. And there are some problems with only having digital users. So when you're doing digital engagement to make physical users, if that is your end goal, then you have, let me say, quite the experience, quite the challenge ahead of you. If you're doing digital engagement just to make digital users, you have another problem, which is that they might not show up. They don't show up in the library, so they don't show up in a lot of your other measurements. And also, many of these people don't even know they're using the library when they're using digital services. So it's hard to get some traction with your local politicians and your funding if you're saying we have a lot of digital users. They don't even know they're using the library. And it's not only the library who has these problems, because these are physical. No, this is from a commercial bookstore, the biggest one in Denmark. These are the top paper books they sold in 22. And I know you can't read the titles, most of you, but just see if you can make sort of a memory snapshot. And these are the digital books. Those are not only completely different books, but it turns out that the audio users and the ebook users, the audiobook users are on the top and the ebook users are on the bottom. Their usage is completely the same. So we used to think that it would be ebooks and physical book readers versus the audiobook listeners. But it turns out that it's the physical users versus the digital users, and not only in the library, but in commercial services as well. So we did a little brainstorming, and we came up with 10 ways of reaching new users and new audience groups with using digital tools. The first one is digital content and resources. The next one is virtual programs and events, social media engagement, online learning platforms, accessibility and inclusivity, gamification, interactive experiences, partnerships and collaborations, data-driven personalization, digital makerspaces, and community building. Now, the top three are sort of the low-hanging fruit. This is what you will typically have. And if you don't have it, fear not, at least for the digital content and resources, because we'll get back to that. Now, this is where I won't go through all the slides. If you're interested in a detailed rundown of all 10, please just write to me. My email will be at the end of it. I will just mention the first three, which are digital content and resources. So those would be your audiobooks and your ebooks. The whole point of this webinar is to point out that you really need, we beg of you to make your own library platform. And we will tell you why. So if you have to use Overdrive or something like it, yes, hopefully that's a step on your way. Online databases, of course, you all know this. This is also sort of an example of somebody wanting to learn, let's say, Italian. And so that person is now in the market for learning Italian, of course. Does that person, if he's not or she is not a library user, think of the library as an alternative? This is in the customer journey, in the awareness phase. Do they know that you offer something like Mango Languages? Some used to offer Duolingo before it had such a great free version. All these online resources, can you use them to sort of put a hook in your new user groups, your new target user groups that you're trying to reach? And then again, what then? If you get somebody to learn Italian using your library service, your online service here, then what? Are you going to, how do you develop that person into a loyal user and an ambassador for your service? Digital magazines and newspapers, many people have that. I am, once again, the people interested in reading newspapers on their iPad using your library service are not the same people who are sitting in your physical library reading the newspapers. Once again, these are completely different new user groups, different user groups. So if you want to reach the digital group, then what? Are you satisfied with them just using a digital service, or do you want something else with them? If you want to do more with them, you need to have a plan for that. Now, the second one is also pretty easy and understandable. It's webinars, workshops on everything. Could be run from the library, author talks and book clubs. We're not very good at that. I mean, Denmark is supposedly a very sophisticated library service, but we are not very good at making digital book clubs, having author talks. Also because it sort of blurs the line between where is the publishers and libraries. And of course, storytime sessions. We should have storytime sessions online, reading to kids. And then once again, the paradox is, are we turning people into only digital users because we want the children in the physical library? And the third one, you all have social media engagement. Probably libraries have been on social media since they started. I would like to point out that these are American tech giants now, and the world has changed. So maybe we should build a European alternative. And TikTok is, of course, some sort of version of hell on earth. There is every research piece points to a very clear correlation between TikTok use and not only what is it called, mental problems, but also the inverse of reading. The more you use TikTok, the less you read. Interactive content, of course, targeted campaigns. Whenever there's a social media specialist working with a library, they always come out and say, yeah, there people like them, but it's, oh man, it's so amateurish. And I'm not trying to provoke anybody, because I've had that said to my face when I thought I was really really on the cutting edge of things. So for the last 7, I will just point out that they're here, and you can get the slides. I think making virtual escape rooms is gonna it's gonna be great. But there is a guy called Chris Coward, as an American who works in Copenhagen now, who specializes in making escape rooms, disinformation escape rooms. Um, I'm happy to say I escaped the time I tried it. So these are all for the sake of completeness. The last one, this community building. Once again, when you try to build a community and you're using online tools, you need a plan for, are you happy with that? Or do you trying to get people into the physical library? If you're trying to get people into the physical library, then making them hooked on digital tools is at best a double-edged sword. But that was just a very brief introduction. I will now give the floor to my good colleague Anne, who has been on the Danish e-learning service always. I can't remember a time when she was not here. And she's now the project owner of what is called ELAN Go. We'll just call it Go, so you don't have to break your tongue trying to say the Danish ELAN. And it is our e-learning service for kids, which is completely and wildly successful. And I'll let her tell you how they did it.
As Mikkel said, I'm gonna tell you about Go, and I think maybe we're a little bit pressed for time, but I'll do my best to keep it brief. Go is an e-lending service for children from the Danish public libraries. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we reach the audiences and how we how we keep the ones that we already have with us for as long as we can. So first off, what is Go? Go is essentially a website solution and an app created and owned by the Danish public libraries. And the reason why I say websites on this slide is because there are 98 different local Go sites, because each municipality in Denmark has one. But we create the content centrally and distribute it centrally to all the pages, all the websites. And then you can add your own local content as well. And I'll tell you more about the content later. The app and the website are for children in the age 6 to 16. And it's primarily a streaming service, you might say. We do also on the website present the physical books. And this year we're going to add the functionality that you can make reservations of the physical book as well. But at the time, it's primarily consumption of ebooks and audiobooks on the app and the website. And we do also have content about books that we create that hopefully inspires, or we know that it inspires children to read the books that we talk about. It's an adult-free space. And we have this mission that we want to foster a love of books in children and enhance their reading motivation. So that's what we kind of strive towards in everything that we do. About me, I'm, as Mikkel said, at the Digital Public Library, or called the digitale folkebibliotek in Denmark, and I'm the product owner for Go's website. And I'm also responsible for channel and strategy in our editorial team, which means that I'm responsible for the content that we produce. In terms of Go users, we do strive to make books accessible for all children, regardless of socioeconomic status. And of course, that's very much in line with the libraries, the Danish libraries' mission regarding books and reading. But it's especially prominent when talking about digital books, because we're able to reach some of the users that we wouldn't otherwise reach. So the children who don't go to the library with their parents or at the school. We have around 150,000 users, which is a lot in a Danish context, and our primary target audience are the 8 to 12-year-olds. And the reason for that is because we see a decrease in the reading motivation around the age of 10. So we know that up until then, their reading is heavily facilitated by parents or teachers, and they're very motivated to learn the skill of reading. But by the age of 10, they've learned the basic skill of reading, and then not that motivated to read, to gain that skill. So we need different motivators, and also everything else starts to interest them. So their friends, different social platforms, etc. They're often introduced to Go in schools, and that's because we have this functionality where they're able to log in with their school login. So in Denmark, we have what's called uni login, which is something that every public school has. And that means that they know their login information, and many children don't remember or even have their own library user. And if they don't remember it, they can't use it. So we introduce it. They're introduced through schools because they know this login. But we know that they also use Go at home. So they're introduced in schools. Typically, they have this free reading period in the beginning of the day. They're introduced there, so we can see that they're reading their ebooks in the afternoon, for instance. And then we have a spike of especially audiobook consumption in the evenings and just around like bedtime, and then in the mornings. And what's kind of unique in line with what Mikkel said about our product is that my organization, we have this 360 degrees view of the product because we're responsible for Go end to end. And what I mean by that is that we handle both the development and the editorial work. We don't do the coding itself. We work with a software company, software development company, obviously, but we do set the demands, and we do implement the strategies through those demands. And we do all the editorial work, so all the content that is supposed to go into this app and into the website, we create that. So that means we have quite a strong foundation for creating something that truly connects with the children. And also, it allows us to involve children. So we involve children in as much as we can. We do it when we create new features. We do it when we create new content. We do it through tests, focus groups. We have what's called Go ambassadors, and we visit schools, etc. And you might say we're quite privileged in the sense that we're not in the business of creating educational materials. So we don't have to focus on the basic of them learning the skill of reading, basically. We just focus on the joy of reading. And we do that no matter the format. So we have this quite modern view of reading, where reading audiobooks is reading digital books, obviously, but also comic books, etc. We don't really care what kind of book it is, as long as they have a good experience reading it. And I think that we're also sort of rooted in this Scandinavian tradition of children's literature that is quite rebellious. So we're kind of, in many ways, or have been at least, the class rebel. Not least when it comes to the content that we create. And what we do is that we have this goal that we want to communicate with children on their level. And to us, that means, amongst other things, of course, communicating through video content. And we've been doing that since 2019. Go has existed for about 10 years, 10, 11 years. But since 2019, we've been communicating through video content. And that is video content that is distributed on our app and on our website, but also on YouTube. And the reason that we do that is because we know that more than 90% of our target audience use YouTube weekly. So it's an arena where we can reach them in their free time, at a time where they're not told by their teachers, you have to connect with this content, or you have to read, you have to perform, because that's what they meet when they talk to, or when grown-ups talk to them about reading. They're always being met by, you have to perform better, you have to read the right sort of books. So we try to pull it a little bit in a different direction and create content that is both fun and engaging and dynamic, and sort of mimics what they're used to seeing on YouTube and other platforms. And we do different sizes of productions. We have the smaller productions, like this one over here, which is where a child has sent us a video of a recommendation of a book, and then we edit it, put on music, etc., and present it on our platforms. And then we have bigger productions, studio productions, where there are sketches or challenges, stuff like that, and also children talking about books. And then we do campaigns in partnership with the Danish libraries, of course. This one down here is obviously in Danish. I hope you can see my mouse. It's in Danish, and it says, "Am I going to go to jail?" And that was a video we made for a campaign with the Danish Central Libraries, because we wanted to validate the children's experience, that when they're telling an adult that they're reading a comic book, they're told you should rather be reading a real book, for instance. And we know that that's not very motivating for the child's reading in general. So we wanted to validate that. And that's actually something that's a core principle to us. It's that we want to validate the children's opinion. We have this core principle of child-to-child communication. So every book recommendation in the app on the website is a child recommended to other children. Obviously, we want to empower the children to express their reading experiences because we know that they don't really have a language for that. So we want to model that. And we really do believe in the right to express oneself. It's also stated in the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. So we want to provide role models. How do you speak about literature, about books, but also a platform. So we also have like a platform that we use where you can upload a video, and then in the process, a parent can consent to us using the content. And we do that. We go through those hoops because we really do believe that the children's opinions matter. They're experts in their own lives. We have no idea what it's like to be a child in 2026. So we have to hear it from them. And it's much easier to hear it from them than to guess what they're interested in. And also, it's a strategy that delivers results.
Jeg vil sagtens sige, der er en haj imellem mig og floden. Jeg tror, den er på floden her nu. Nej, den er på mig. Nu er det tid til lidt gaming.
Man skærer ris.
Kan man skære ris? Jeg hænger fast. Du ender med at dø.
Jeg kom helt dernede fra, så næsten helt op på toppen.
Vilfred, du sagde tidligere, at Lars i bogen, der har han ret høje forventninger til sig selv.
Jeg synes, han sætter for høje forventninger til sig selv. Kommer han til at farve uden for stregerne, så er hele tegningen ødelagt.
Synes du, at være sårbar, er det en negativ ting?
Nej, man må gerne være sig selv. Folk skal ikke bestemme nogen til. Hvis man er rigtig gode venner med sine venner, så kan det godt ligesom føles som familie, som brødre.
Ja. I dag var det sammen igen! Man har ikke lov til at snakke lort! Vi kan noget mere kylling. Du smider kylling over bord! Hjem. Så må du... Tiden over. Men det vigtigste er, at vi stadigvæk venner.
Ja, selvfølgelig.
Godt, så kan jeg lande der ligegyldigt.
This is a concept, it's an example. It's called lit gaming, and it's essentially gaming content combined with book content. So it's a book club with 3 boys. And this, you can see this little screen down here. It's the famous YouTuber in Denmark called Lasse Vestergaard, gaming YouTuber. And what we did was we created a format where the children were talking about books while gaming. And it's if you're not used to watching gaming content, you could be thinking like, is this, you know, do they even know that they're talking about books, etc. And what is this basically? But in general, we see that we have very good results from this strategy. So overall on our content, we have around 4 million views on YouTube and 840,000 in the past year or so. And one of the things that we're very pleased with is that the majority of viewers are boys, more than 70%. And in Denmark, at least, that's a demographic that is notoriously difficult to reach when it comes to book content. They're not really interested in it, but here we present it in a way that's actually quite interesting for them. And we can see that they stay with us through the videos. We have an average watch time between 60 and 100%. And that is, if you don't know, that's quite high. So we've created content that really resonates with the children. And that in itself is actually a goal of ours. Like we want to, as I said before, we want to model that good conversation around books, and we want to present books as something that can be combined with other interests that the kids might have. But we also do see that there is a spike in loans of the recommended books following the video releases. And that's a general tendency. So we see it in varying degrees, of course, and in lit gaming, which was very successful. We saw that in many of the titles, there was a tenfold increase in the loads in the period where it was released. And it's some of the most viewed content we have on the website and the app. So we have what amounts to the equivalent of 24/7 viewing for about 10.5 months on that. So that's really something that resonates. And I'm not going to really go into this, but You see here that we have, what you see here is from a video, and the recommended books are down here, and we see within this light blue period, it's the release period, we see like spikes in the loans. And here it is from Lit Gaming, where you see the period prior, and then you see after the release. And I think I'm just gonna sum up by saying some of the learnings that we have from working with this field over time. As I said before, and as Mikkel also mentioned, it's very important to us to have this end-to-end responsibility of the platform, because it enables us to create products that resonate with the children, basically, and it also enables us to achieve our strategic goals as a public service institution, because we have the control from start to finish. We also have learned that children want book recommendations from their peers, not adults. However well-meaning they might be, they would rather have it from a peer. And it's really not that difficult to understand, but very important, nevertheless. Also, availability and accessibility are really important factors for children when choosing a book. So what the digital books do is that they enable us to reach the child at the point of interest. They see something that they're interested in, they can get it immediately. They don't have to wait. And that makes it easier to create some reading experiences, or experiences with books, if they're listening to them instead, that are actually pleasurable. Because far too many children have experiences with books where they are validated in their belief that books are not for me, and all books are boring, for instance. And we are not really concerned with whether or not they read physically or digitally, but we know that the digital experience offers something differently. So that's worth taking into account. And last but not least, children's preferences change very quickly. So frequent child involvement is essential if you want to stay in touch with this group. It's not enough to do an involvement process in the beginning of a project and then leave it at that. You have to come back, constantly keeping in touch with the kids. And I think that's it for me.
I think it's a wonderful example of not only having those direct goals of saying we want to have children check out books from our online service. We want to develop this user group, and so they should check out more books. There are actually much more deeper and strategic aims with this. One of them being that making it normal for children to talk about books and talk about reading, and giving them a platform to do so, but also just trying to manipulate their behavior in a good way, in that way. So it's just not only about checking out books, it's also about them talking about reading, and it's also about having alternatives on the screen. So picking up a screen for a child might not cause that much alarm from their parents, because you can also use it to read. You don't have to use TikTok or whatever. So there's a lot going on the surface, but there's even more going on beneath it. That's great. So we'll turn to the national cases. Slovenia, Ireland, and Finland. These three countries are both in various stages of their journeys to controlling their own platforms. Because let me just change here. Some of the presenters here and myself have known each other for some years now through the work of Naval Forum, which is a forum for the national authorities on public libraries, and is chaired by Stuart, who you'll listen to in a minute. And we've talked a lot about copyright and publishers and platforms and all these things over the years, and knowledge shared. But what is becoming sort of increasingly apparent is that clear is that libraries really need to control their own platform in order to do the things that Anne just described. And it doesn't have to be ELAN Go. It just as long as you're using another platform, you are having some challenges. You remember that people tend to be either physical or digital, and those are your users that are only digital. It feels like, if you have a commercial service, it feels like you're walking into a bar and you're putting your MasterCard on the table and you're saying, everybody's drinks is on me now, and then you leave the pub. And people are having a blast checking out free books, but they don't know they're using the library, and they don't know that you have to go in the next day and pick up the tab. So in order to work with this customer journey, in order to develop these audiences, we are really advising you to think about controlling your own e-learning platform. If you have a very well-functioning one using a commercial service, consider going back a little and making your own. And if you don't have one, consider making this your strategic aim from day one. The acquisition process and negotiations are also important, but first of all, controlling your own platforms. And this is why we're listening to these three brilliant people now. And we'll start off with Alish from Ljubljana City Library, and a stalwart through all these years of e-lending discussions.
Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, we have quite interesting case to present. Firstly, we started to work with publishers by their initiative. This is not our first initiative to lend e-books in Slovenian public libraries. The first initiative came from the biggest publisher, Mladinska knjiga. It was in early 2010s. It tried to be some kind of mixture of accessing books through dedicated reading devices. There were also initiative to have some kind of mixture of model of Barnes and Noble bookstore and Starbucks. Maybe you know how it worked when you entered into the Starbucks and you could use all the back catalog of Starbucks books, and there was the idea that you could lend also a book from a library, but you could not access to those titles outside the walls of a library. So that, of course, it was not a great idea. So in 2013, one of the biggest publishing houses that was also some kind of non-profit organization, so Beletrina, came with an idea to develop lending platform with the Slovenian public libraries. So all 58 public libraries started to use this platform that was developed by the Beletrina, also was financed in the start from their side, and there was just model how to lend out was agreed with the Slovenian Public Library Association, so Association of all directors of Slovenian public libraries. So it worked maybe for about 8, 9, maximally 10 years. It was a great way to introduce Slovenian users to electronic books. So the back catalog grew quite rapidly, especially in time of Corona crisis. But then it started to become financially unsustainable. It was too costly for public libraries to use it on one side. On a second part, there was also problem in introducing this kind of platform to other types of libraries, especially school libraries, because there was not much titles available for a school audience. There was also a problem with financing, because the public libraries in Slovenia are financed by the Ministry of Culture, but the school libraries are from the ministry responsible for schools and higher education. So in 2024, we started to think about how we could make it better, how to make it more sustainable financially and technically, especially because there was also a model to licensing was not most convenient for all libraries, especially for smaller libraries, because we had a model that libraries had to buy in advance a license with 52 loans. So they have to pay in advance everything that they thought it would be interesting for users. So we try to think about paper loan model. Okay, so in 2024, we started to collaborate with the Institute of Information Science. This is actually organization that is responsible for Slovenia's national library infrastructure, and actually covers everything that is automated in Slovenian libraries. And of course, it is logical that we also put our lending platform to this software developer, so they became the one who made a new platform that was based on a library management system that was introduced in Slovenian libraries in 1987. So it was here for quite a while. And there was also idea that we should have an aggregator or coordinator of this model from our representatives. So one of the Slovenian public libraries became a business supporter and coordinator of our platform. And in mid of 2024, there were 53 Slovenian publishers included in Slovenian market. There are around 200 publishers, I would say, and around 80 or 90 are the ones who also publish electronic books. So why we need our new private and our own platform? Of course, we have to go from private to public good, because it was, as I mentioned, too costly for us. We have to make an equitable for all types of libraries, all sizes of libraries, ensure sustainable financing. And the second thing was also strengthening partnership with publishers. I mentioned before that Belletrina was one of the publishers. So it's hard to negotiate with publishers if your main person is a publisher. So we try to put it around and find new way and put libraries as the one who negotiate the publishers. Of course, integrate access to ebooks, and also in the future we try to also include audiobooks through this platform, even though we have another platform for lending out audiobooks. So the users can use online catalog that are used for the last 30, 40 years, also to lend out electronic books. It is open sourced. Books are use a Radium DRM system. There is one problem, because for the last 10 years, users in Slovenian libraries were used to read on dedicated ebook readers by the Kobo, and Kobo doesn't support Radium yet. And the third main reason why we have to have a new platform was ensure to work, because applications that were used with Biblos were not working. They had quite a lot of bugs, so there were low satisfaction from the users of.
Alan, I think we have to wrap it up.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, it as I said, it has to be fair and square. Paper loan model. We have achieved. Okay, it could be better, but users are getting new titles. They're getting to use also other reading devices, not just ebook readers. And so we try to introduce into this platform also dedicated reading application for ebooks, also for audiobooks, text-to-speech accessibility, and there are also ideas to expand to also have a marketplace at our platform. So what we learned, digital transformation can be also work in the public ownership. We should use existing national infrastructure in 10 years ago, but okay, at least we started to process and find some kind of trust with all others who are on the publishing market. It's very fast, so it's hard to
Thank
see
you.
everything in 5 minutes. Sorry.
So yeah, I like the idea that you should have done this 10 years ago, but the next best thing is doing it now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Stuart.
Thanks, Mikkel. I will try to do a tight 5. So I'm talking to you all from Ireland. I'm the National Advisor on Public Libraries here in Ireland, and my team manages a contract for the provision of e-resources for the whole country. We use the BorrowBox app, which some of you will know, which is provided by EBLIDA. That's an Australian company, which is relevant to some of this discussion. We have 330 public libraries in Ireland and 30 local authorities. And we've had BorrowBox as the provider of ebooks and e-audiobooks for about 6 or 7 years. Prior to that, our local authorities had sort of individual offers, and we consolidated them and we moved to provide a national offer. So it's a commercial vendor, and it's extremely successful. We've seen increasing loans of ebooks and e-audiobooks every year since we've been providing this service. And many of the characteristics of the service have already been described by Anna, Mikkel, Alesh, in terms of user engagement and the fact that users love this service. Many of them may never set foot in a library or engage with their library services in a physical way, but they are able to use their library card to access ebooks. With great success comes greater obligations, I guess you can say, increasing costs, greater awareness that the licensing terms and conditions that we receive for the provision of our ebooks are restrictive. And there's a really key factor here, which kind of is important in relation to other panelists and other countries represented here, which is that we are an English language first country, which means that we're providing content from the big 5 trade publishers. And trying to get in a room to doing a negotiation with those guys is quite difficult. Even more so because we use a commercial vendor, and that means there is no contact between the libraries in Ireland and the publishers of the ebooks on this platform. And our vendor has no reason to go into any negotiations for us. They are there to get us to spend more money with them primarily. So we are one of the countries on a journey. We would love to be in the position that Denmark, Finland, and Slovenia are in. And our most recent National Public Library strategy included a commitment to scope and explore the building of library-owned ebook infrastructure. And we've been doing just that for the last couple of years. We've been engaging with peers all over the place, been up to visit Anna, for example, to look at various systems. And we've been trying to do the backroom work to generate a legal environment that's going to enable us at a certain point to switch. And I can't stress how important this is, in that despite, we haven't got time to go into them in detail today, but despite European rulings, like the so-called VOB ruling, we're not really in a confident position across Europe to be able to offer the sorts of e-lending platforms that we'd like to. So we, on our journey, where we're currently at, is trying to bottom that out. We find ourselves in an interesting position. We've engaged with the Consumer Competition Protection Commission to try to understand if the publishers are offering us unfair terms that could actually have something done about it by a government agency. Answer is no. And we've also had really strong support from our government department, who have opened up a pathway from us to the Attorney General's office in Ireland, where we've been able to ask really detailed legal questions about what it would take to get us into a situation where we could build our own platform and effectively use the law to create the space for us to buy ebooks, or at the very least license them on far more appropriate terms and conditions. fun fact when you get Attorney General's advice in Ireland is that that comes into our government department and then they're not allowed to tell us about it. So then they have to write a summary of the Attorney General's advice that's not allowed to reference the Attorney General's advice, send it back to the Attorney General's office so their homework can be marked, and then finally we get a copy of it. So it goes through about 2 or 3 different non-lawyer people before it gets back to us. We've had one round of that, and we've asked supplementary questions which have just come back to us and are now going through the homework phase. Where we hope to get to is being able to understand the position we need to be in to pay PLR to our authors on our ebooks. We have no desire and will not pay PLR on licensed content. So if we can get to a position where all financial arrangements in the future meet our needs, then we will happily pay PLR to our authors if we can get the terms and conditions that we want. So we're trying to bottom out these a number of different sorts of areas. And in the meantime, we pay very close attention to the software and infrastructure developments in places like Finland, Slovenia, and Denmark, so that when the time comes, we're going to be able to hopefully, stand on the shoulders of giants, not build something from the ground up, and use those platforms in the context of our new legal environment. We are receiving, relatively positive signs about what can be done in Denmark, because previously our government departments have said, oh, it's all a Brussels problem. But we think we might be able to do something in Ireland before we actually have to do something in the EU. And I guess when I come back to you in maybe the next webinar of this sort of situation, I might be able to give you a better update. But look, I promised you a tight 5. I think I may have come in slightly under, so I'm a good boy. Thanks.
Brilliant, thank you, Stu. Yeah, for every topic we raised here, we will hold a separate webinar. So Anna, and for those of you, while Anna is finding her presentation, for those of you who have to leave at 2, this will go on YouTube. Ines will probably be able to say where and when. And we have emails in the end where you can get presentations. So, but we will hang around for a Q&A.
So I'm Anna Tomikoski from the National Library of Finland, and we are running from there a nationwide e-library solution for the public libraries, and that has been launched in 2024. We have an open source based platform, so we have the platform, and that was created by us, for us, and we are actually also doing the coding, referring to what Anna said about Denmark. At the moment, we have a mobile app only, but the web version will be launched in March, so next month. I'm rushing a bit. So how did we go there? I think the first and maybe the most important thing is that the need for this kind of solution came from the public libraries. So that was the first phase. After that, a group of people went searching for financing, and we got financing for the development phase from the Ministry of Education. We got 3 years to do investigations, planning, and development. So we did it in a separate project and then launched the service in April 2024. So actually the National Library wasn't involved before the launch of the service. But now it's funded entirely by the municipalities, and it's only run from the National Library, but National Library is not funding this service. So what are the advantages of having, I'm thinking here about the advantages of having your own platform and also a nationwide solution. I think the most important is that you have the autonomy in development. You decide in what direction you want to develop the service, and you are not dependent on commercial companies, for instance. And it gives you more bargaining power, for instance, in negotiations with publishers. We still have restrictions. The availability of books is not perfect, but it's much better now than it was before when we had 40 separate collections. Now we only have one collection. We have one organization running that.
so it's easier to handle the negotiations. We also have a stronger brand, of course, because if you have one organization only, so it's easier to market the service. It's to your possible clients. You don't need special skills everywhere in the country. We are 9 in our organization, and you don't have so much overlapping work when you don't have separate collections and separate services. It's like, I think Aleš brought it up, that it's also important that you treat your citizens in an equal way. So this creates more geographical equality, for instance, that it's not that if you happen to live in a municipality that is very small and has a very small collection of e-and audiobooks, then you have to live with that. No, everybody has access to the same collection. I also think that it's user-friendly, that now all the services are on the same platform. It's not that foreign books are on one magazines. We have e-and audiobooks and digital magazines, but they are all on the same. Our advice, my team's advice, don't even aim for harmony if you're trying to do this kind of change. It's never possible. You just go for it, and avoid the stage where you stick in the planning and developing and analyzing how to do it. You will find solutions to upcoming challenges. You don't have to foresee everything. And you have to dare to experiment, and you especially have to collaborate. I think it's especially important that you involve all the public libraries when you start developing the service, so that they feel that this is a part of their service. It's not somebody is providing for them from outside, but they are participating in creating and running it every day. And especially go digital, create your own platform to maintain the relevance of libraries also in the future. That's all for me. Thank you.
Slides or information. Do you already know where this will be uploaded, Ines? Did you say YouTube?
Yes, EBLIDA has its own YouTube channel where we upload all the ELAN events that we record. We will need to have some time to edit and make sure that it's presentable before uploading it, but once it is, we will share it.
Okay, cool. So I know this was a lot. We've covered a lot of heavy topics that each of them in and of itself could be a webinar and might be in the future. So maybe it's a little bit challenging to figure out what it is that you want to ask, but we'll hang around a little bit. And otherwise, please do write me. And if you want to get in touch with some of the other speakers, I will refer you.
And I just answered, there was a Q&A asking if person would be wanted to see the source code of the app, so I can share the GitHub link. So I answered giving my email address. So
Okay, excellent. Was that, am I remembering this wrong, or was the original blueprint this American open library system?
It's the Palace project actually that is underlying.
Okay.
Yeah. We've gone quite far from the original Palace project.
Yeah, because of your local needs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. For instance, the authentication of clients, and also the magazine part, which was never included in the Palace, also only books.
Okay. Cool. But then to all your panelists and presenters, thank you very much for spending your time, and to the audience, thanks for spending your time with us. I hope to see you out there.
I think there are a few questions. The one for Mikkel. The data you mentioned in your PowerPoint comes from all kinds of libraries? Asked Antonius.
Come again?
In the Q&A box, it says the data you mentioned in your PowerPoint comes from all kinds of libraries.
Yeah, what data?
The data you mentioned in your PowerPoint, I think when you show the percentage.
Oh, about physical digital users, and yeah, that was public libraries.
Yes.
That was national data from all public libraries. The problem is that we can't, because we use some genius half a century ago came up with using social security numbers as your primary identification in the library. So there's a limit to what the library itself can do with data, because these are GDPR protected in several ways. So we have the data goes to the Danish Agency for Statistics, and then we have to ask them to do these calculations. But yeah, that was for national libraries, all public libraries all across Denmark.
Okay, and there's another question asking if the platforms that are presented include magazines or journals.
Well, I can answer for myself. We have it's a little bit confusing, but we actually have an overdrive for our English language content, and they Overdrive bought the service that we used for Danish magazines and newspapers. So now, in order to read digitally Danish magazines, these colorful magazines, you have to go to Overdrive, or to which is a little confusing, or we also have Press Reader. I don't think it's, to my mind, strategically speaking, it's newspapers and magazines, to me at least, is not sort of the core value of an e-lending service. I think it has to come from books and audiobooks. So it's a little bit of a, what we in Danish call red-haired stepchild. It moves around a little bit.
We in Finland have magazines, and I don't think we would be able to have newspapers, because it's such a huge business for the newspaper companies to have digital like services that they are selling to consumers. So we have like a little bit more than 100 magazines, mainly in Finnish, but also in Swedish and in English, and they are actually very, very used. So it's a huge part of the service, but I agree with Mikkel that the core service is books.
So for Selena, it's the same. We use only for ebooks at the moment. Maybe in the future there will be audiobooks, but for the newspapers and the magazines, we use Press Reader solution. So commercial, yeah.
We every 4 years we enter into negotiations with the Danish newspapers common organization, and they always want a ton of money for the reasons that Anna said, and then they won't allow people to log on from anywhere else but the library. So in order to read a digital newspaper, people will have to go to the physical library and then log in from there, which is just strange.
Yeah, that one we also have in Finland, but it's not actually covered by us, because we say that in our service we only take care of, services you can use remotely. So the libraries, public libraries in Finland, are taking care of that service by themselves.
And also, I don't want to discourage anybody, but it's a completely different set of economics. It's a different set of publishers, it's different sets of rights and considerations. So yeah. Should I try and say goodbye again, Camilla?
Yeah, I mean, we replied to all the questions, so I think we can say goodbye.
Okay. Then once again, all the things I said before. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Bye.